Again, we're going to keep a close eye on shares of NVIDIA with a pre-announcement this morning. But we mentioned as well, remember, NVIDIA was in a deal to buy ARM Holdings from SoftBank. Didn't happen. Regulators said, no, thank you. Stopped. ARM is still owned by SoftBank. And I mentioned that this morning. Stock's looking okay, Jim, even though they had just a horrific quarter in part because, of course, of the performance of their investments. So you're marketing them to market. Many of them are now public companies at this point.
Is it again the same thing as NVIDIA? Like the stock has been bad. That's not right.
Yes.
So therefore,
you mean in terms of SoftBank not reflecting what was a huge loss, so to speak. Down $16 billion in 3 months. That's March 31st to June 30th. By the way, things have rebounded a bit. We know July was obviously much stronger.
Right.
But Masa's son is sounding a very defensive tone. Do we have this? We can read it from their comments this morning, of course, having to do with the quarter, where Masa said Vision Fund headcount may need to be reduced dramatically, not only the Vision Fund, but corporate-wise, since we've been seeing a huge loss. He also talked about being in defense mode, essentially, even with, Jim, what he says may be some opportunities. Take a listen.
We are in a defense mode. The world is still very volatile. The inflation is still severe. Interest rate is going up. In the difficult time, we kept on divesting our asset. We reduced the new investment. We now have a much more managed, conservative approach in terms of new investment.
Of course, SoftBank is still the largest of all of them out there when it comes to investments in private companies. Right. They sent the valuation soaring. DoorDash, of course, still one of their larger positions. Uber they've gotten out of to a large extent, but there are so many other names that people know well.
Good.
Yeah.
They went for operating cash flow. They talked about moving the goalposts.
Yeah, I saw that.
I thought it was very positive. Look, David, I think that one of the things that's really happened, you and I both think of tech as more secular growth. In other words, not really impacted by the economy. This has been a very jarring quarter for those, whether it be for Meta, whether it be for Alphabet, okay, Netflix. They all are saying, listen, we're really being impacted. And yet unemployment is incredibly low.
Yes.
So why are they being impacted? Wages are higher. Now, you could say that, Jim, inflation is running ahead of wages.
It's such a difficult time to try to figure things out, Jim.
Yes.
It's been 2 weeks since you and I have even had a conversation about the market. So just bring me up to date. Talking with SoftBank, with this news we have this morning from NVIDIA talking about macroeconomic headwinds. Off of that huge print on jobs on Friday, to your point, and wage growth, and an unemployment rate that's as low as it's ever been.
I think that there's been a tremendous decline in commodity prices that people don't want to talk about. They're horrible, whether it be copper, whether it be aluminum, whether it be steel of all grades. We saw that last week. There's been a decline in ad revenue. There's a decline in spend by all companies in order to make up for the fact that there's a decline at the top line. But there's a hope that the Fed is going to be finished, and that is what's driving stocks. Now, I think if Jay Powell looks at this bill and looks at the so-called semiconductor bill, he'd be nuts not to do three-quarters interim meeting, because he needs to do a shot across the bow to Congress. You can't just keep doing this. Inflation reduction is
spending
not.
Well, the Inflation Reduction Act has been marked as a deficit reduction.
Well,
I mean, $300 billion, I believe, over time, right?
Right, but
I think I got that number.
I'm skeptical of that. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying they're liars. I'm skeptical. But Jay Powell should be looking at that number on Friday. And I had not advocated this before, but I'm glad you're back to talk about it. I think the unemployment number was so high that the Fed really does need to step up. And I thought the Fed
the employment number was so high.
The employment number.
Yeah.
Because, David, it's just, we can't be this hot without endemic wage inflation, and we can't have that.
But when I hear you say that, Jim, that's not necessarily constructive for the market, even though we came in today with it up. And by the way, we still look like we're going to open higher in 9 minutes.
I thought we would open down. I mean, last night we were going over the bill for the little that we know, because suddenly that bill was little secret, I'd say. But futures were down. I thought that was right, because I don't think there's that capitalism wins in this bill, capitalism loses. But like I said, if you're an environmentalist, you have to be amazed that Congress is able to do something.